Well, welcome and thank you so much for being here to join this conversation tonight. I'm Carol Williamson with the League of Women Voters of Lawrence Douglas County, and our colleague Kay Johnson on the front row here, also an organizer of this event and timekeeper. She's going to keep us on track tonight. And Christina?
Hi, welcome. My name is Christina Haswood, she, hers. I'm with the Climate and Energy Project. We're a nonprofit based in Kansas, and I'm located in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm a program director. I also have my wonderful staff here, Allison Thomas, who we put in the video closet. I don't know if you want to wave. Thank you. She's a program director. Then we have Summer Powell over here, who's our intern this summer. Thank you so much for being here. And are you introducing?
Yeah. So welcome to this conversation. And we also want to let you know that besides Climate Plus Energy Project and the Lawrence Douglas County League, this forum is being sponsored by the Kansas Sierra Club. Thank you, Zack. So welcome to this conversation about our current Lawrence City Ordinance 9744, adopted in 2020, which set a goal of 100% renewable energy for Lawrence. Yeah. Copies of the ordinance are available on the back table. The ordinance establishes goals for achieving 100% renewable energy within municipal operations and 100% renewable energy citywide. Well, Christina will tell you why we're here tonight.
There's been discussion among city staff that this ordinance should either be rescinded or revised as the goals and timeline listed on the ordinance are not being met. Our forum tonight aims to provide information and conversation towards the future of the 100% renewable energy goal in Lawrence. The forum is being videoed, and comments by the panel and the public will be shared with City Commission. A media release statement and participating in the Help Lawrence Keep Our Goal of 100% renewable energy, that y'all grant permission for the League of the Women Voters, Douglas County Lawrence Chapter, Kansas Sierra Club, and Climate and Energy Project to use videos or photographies of you all for educational purposes or promotions. If you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me, haswood@climateandenergy.org. We ask and expect that we have a civil discourse about goals for renewable energies in Lawrence.
We're so pleased to introduce our panel. Nancy Muma is chair of the Lawrence Environmental Sustainable Advisory Board and chair of Pharmacology and Toxicology at KU.
And our local Sierra Club.
Yes, the local Sierra Club. Very good. You know, as we move on, please correct or add to anything I might say. Tyler Moore is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, a Convergent climate scientist researcher, Haskell alumnus, and a current KU grad student. Christina Haswood introduced herself, but I'm going to go on. She's program director for Climate Plus Energy Project and a former Kansas legislator. She is a citizen of the Navajo Nation. Owen Miller has his master's in urban planning with a specialization in sustainable land use development. Zack Pistora is the director of the Kansas chapter of the Sierra Club, one of our sponsors for tonight. And Boog Highberger is president of our Lawrence Douglas County League of Women Voters. He's a former Kansas legislator and a former Lawrence City Commissioner and a former Lawrence mayor. After the panel discussion, we'll ask the audience for comments and questions. Ask those questions or make those comments to the panel to respond to. So please hold your questions until that time. So first of all, we're going to start with our first question, and we'll start first with Nancy in answering this. The panelists will have a couple of minutes each to answer the question, because we want to make sure we keep this moving along so that you have time to discuss, ask questions, and make your comments as well. So of all the panelists, we asked, do you support revising or rescinding Lawrence Ordinance 9744? And please share your reasoning. If you support revising, what revisions do you suggest?
Well, I'm going to say, tell you all what the ESAP, can you hear?
Very good. You'll need to be close to the mic, so just move it over as you speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board for the city has sent a letter to the mayor and the city commissioners as of March 31st. And what we recommended is that the ordinance be revised to include a number of key gaps that the original ordinance had. For instance,
And excuse me, can we go a little closer to the mic? And that's for all of you. You just really need to be right down at the mic.
okay.
Thank you.
So there was really not an implementation plan. There was no responsibility or authority assigned for the ordinance. There was a lack of compliance and accountability mechanisms, and there was no funding, according to produce any of these changes. So there was a lack of coordination with the utilities and external actors. So these 5 different things need to be added in order to make this possible. It's great to have these goals, but you got to have a way to achieve them. And the ESAB made some specific recommendations for the City Commission on how they could improve and begin to attain these goals. So this is what I would support.
And Tyler, same question?
Yeah. So I'm just going to hold it like this. So do you support revisions or rescinding the Lawrence Ordinance 9744? I think revisions as a minimum, because as you noted, there are extreme gaps in the overall plans here. But the idea of rescinding it is a bad idea in my perspective. It would have basically stated that within 6 years, we will stop doing all the planning that we had already begun. It would have taken Lawrence, this blue dot in a red state, only 6 years to say we don't really need to make that progress. And it will send that signal to other states, to other cities, to other towns to say, well, it was all for posterity. It was all just to talk a big game, but we won't actually back it up. So revise it as much as possible, as much as needed, but continue to bring good renewable change to Lawrence.
From a climate energy project perspective, we gave public comment early on in the process to the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board, and we wrote in opposition of repealing Ordinance 9744 and encouraged the advisory board, city staff, and the city commissioners to retain the ordinance and revisit the ordinance languages to strengthen the governmental implementation framework. I think the ESAB board has done an amazing job at coming up with ideas, coming up with a plan. We heard from city staff that they felt like they weren't going to meet the goal and didn't have strong, concrete steps in order to accomplish the goal. So I believe the ESAB board has public reports, and you can go online and look at them, recommendations on more of those concrete goals and objectives to get there. The city of Lawrence has done a fabulous job at, trying to meet these renewable energies, but we can do better. The city has the electric buses, and we would like to see those projects continue to soar, but also to put the community's values and efforts in reducing our greenhouse gases and emissions. We do understand the areas of concerns of this ordinance, which is lacking those concrete steps to get to it, to the framework. But we think that with the advisory of ESAB, that these goals can continue to be a priority in our community. I know also ESAB is advocating that the funding of the Sustainability Director's Office continue to not be cut. I know the funding has been severely cut in the past, most recent past, so we're in opposition of the city of doing that as well.
Hi, everybody. I would say that I'm also strongly in support of revisions, and I think that one very clear reason to me why that's the case is because, as the resolution itself outlines, action by all communities is going to be necessary as the climate continues to change and as humanity continues to adapt. And so, bearing that in mind, I think it's critically important that Lawrence acknowledges that we have a very important part to play, both on a local, national, and worldwide level. Beyond that, however, I would argue that at a certain point, the exact sorts of changes outlined in this eventually are no longer optional. They become necessary for all communities. And bearing that in mind, it's really important to understand that once these do become necessary, once these changes have reached a point where it's absolutely imperative that we act on them, our hand will be forced. And so kicking the can down the road, trying to put it off for as long as possible, does a major disservice to the people of Lawrence. I think that one really key element that everyone should really understand is that if we're going to be forced to make these changes at some point, it will greatly benefit the citizens of Lawrence if we do it sooner rather than later. And I think once we can acknowledge that, that's a really important first step towards understanding why revisions specifically are going to be so important. Because as we're here to discuss today, obviously we're not on track, we're not on pace. And since 2020, we've had new technological developments, there's been major geopolitical upheavals, all of which contribute to a resurgence and the conversation surrounding this. And I would say that, to me, the two most important things to understand about potential revisions are, one, as other people have outlined so far, a great increase in detail. There's only really 4 metrics, and that's kind of all we outline in the original publication. But beyond that, I also think we probably need an amended time frame. The projections for climate change have changed since 2020. We need to move faster in some areas, slower in others, and keep that in mind moving forward.
Hey, well said by everyone here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on this important issue, and increasingly more important all the time. We're seeing effects of climate change from coast to coast in terms of extreme temperatures, weather, severe weather, and flash floods and heavy downpours, all that. Kansas is seeing extreme winds, our own set of downpours with inches of rain in minutes as opposed to hours. And so the need is becoming only more important here locally and nationally, but also worldwide too. And people are really suffering as an effect of this. So when we read the resolution, we see a lot hasn't changed. In fact, it's only more important now. Would we support revising or rescinding the ordinance? I think we would choose improve the ordinance or evolve the ordinance to be better, to update it with the times. You can see in looking at some of the renewable resources, some new technologies come to light, like energy storage systems to help harness clean energy. There's thought about renewable hydrogen for renewable or for heavy industry sectors, et cetera. We would, as I think of Lawrence and our legacy, Lawrence has been a pioneer for helping the state come into the union as a free state, et cetera, be a beacon for social and civil rights here in our state. What can we do to continue to be a pioneer in terms of environmental progress? So we'd absolutely support keeping the clean energy ordinance.
Thanks, Zach. Yes, Lawrence has been a pioneer. Also, we've also been a pioneer in inviting the legislature to limit the city government's authority to address things like this. But I've got 2 hats on here tonight, president of the league chapter here and former city commissioner and representative. So that gives you about a minute per hat, I think. But I'll just read from the league's energy position statement from 2025 that the league supports the goals of the city of Lawrence plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as enacted in City Ordinance 9744 and seeks accountability from both Lawrence city government for enacting this plan from city government for enacting this plan. So it doesn't really specifically address revisions, but I think I can speak for the committee that would include supporting that. As far from my other point of view, we've already missed one of the goals for 100% renewable energy for municipal operations set out in the goals. So I think goals should be aspirational, but they shouldn't be impossible. So I think revising those timelines is probably a good idea. And I think really like the suggestions or changes set out by the Sustainability Advisory Board.
Well, thanks for the great start, panel, and for staying on time, man. That's really great. You know, I'm seeing our city commissioners getting to watch this instead of in the intense city commission room, listening to public comment, but do that too. I'm seeing them getting to relax in their own comfortable space and with a delightful, refreshing beverage, and listening to these comments about how great our city is and how much better it can be based on these comments. Now, the elephants in the room. Our next question. As we consider 100% renewable energy for Lawrence, two of the elephants in the room are Evergy, a for-profit organization that answers to their investors and sells energy they make locally to other states and entities. Another elephant in the room is potential data centers to power AI and their demand for energy that eclipses what the people of Lawrence and the customers of Evergy need. So with these elephants in the room, Evergy and potential data centers, is it possible for Lawrence to have 100% renewable energy? And we're going to start this one with Tyler.
So I will fully note, I don't have a good answer for the Evergy question. That's a field and study that I am not party to most discussions. But within the AI discussion, AI isn't the elephant in the room, it is the existential crisis. It's going to it's how it's being enforced in the areas around us. It's almost being told as an inevitability instead of an option, and we cannot allow that. Because yes, it will draw so much power, so much resources that we already are struggling for. Kansas is in a water crisis. The Oglala Aquifer is rapidly being depleted, and if these spaces are now overused by AI, we're just going to be hitting the same issues again and again and again. Every decade will be felt even worse than the one prior. So, as we consider 100% renewable energy sources, there are two elephants in the room. I think we need to really make sure that we don't allow AI to be this all-encompassing issue in the city of Lawrence. We need to be very vocal about this before it becomes, like I've seen so many other communities, their own inevitability. So be very vocal now, be very vocal tomorrow, and even if it shows up one day, say we don't want it the next. That's all I got on that.
I think with Evergy and AI with Evergy, we can't just ignore them. We have to work with our key stakeholders. We have to work with folks who have influence, and maybe sometimes it's good influence and sometimes it's bad influence, but I think they're important to have at the table when we're making these decisions, and having them as a key player. I think, to hold these monopoly utilities accountable, to hold accountability of transparency, to hold accountability of ensuring that the public has an opinion, especially at our Kansas Corporation Commission level, where our utility rates and the dockets that come up are up for increase of our utility rates for big projects, fossil gas projects like the gas plants north and south of Wichita. The demand for energy continues to be greedy. Continues to be greedy. It seems to me that a lot of it is a bit lazy with the solutions. Whatever is the cheapest, whatever is the fastest, whatever is the most expensive, that will give us, our shareholders, Wall Street shareholders, more profit. That's where we need to hold these big corporations accountable, and to be the voice for folks. Everyday folks have to pay the bill, have to keep the lights on, have to keep the heat on. So I don't think we can completely ignore the elephant in the room with these large corporations, but work together and work to hold them accountable. With AI, I feel pretty similar that we need to hold these folks accountable as well. Same issues, right, with transparency, with cutting corners, whatever's the cheapest, taking more water and our natural resources, because that's what's going to get them up the fastest. We need to hold these data centers accountable at every step of the way. I'm really proud of Lawrence and Douglas County. I've seen this room being filled with standing room only, that this community is ready to roll our sleeves up and go toe-to-toe with these corporations, whoever might come. And that's really exciting, because other communities, unfortunately, did not have the resources and the time to organize and get their community together. So I think with the potential of AI and data centers, we need to continue on the accountability method with those folks.
At my apartment, we use Evergy as our service provider, as many people here in Douglas County do. And my power has gone out 4 times in the past 2 months. So I'm not sure how much I can say without being incredibly biased. But I do think one tricky part of navigating a private corporation is that it's difficult to predict how they react to governmental and public developments, especially in an industry where they're already operating. So I'm not sure how much I can speak to what, if any, actions they'll be taking in collaboration or in opposition to development of solar energy here in Douglas County. But I would certainly say I expect it to be unpredictable. In regards to data centers, I think a lot of the literature and a lot of the sentiment surrounding them has been pretty clear in that they can pose a massive risk to local water access and also represent a huge usage of local energy. And all of that, generally speaking, provides limited benefit to local residents. They provide very few jobs, and the ones they do provide are highly specialized and probably already have people that are ready to move in and work those positions. And so, broadly speaking, AI data centers present a net negative to any community where they're present. And so keeping that in mind, I think that it's less a question of whether or not data centers are harmful to Lawrence and our mission to become more sustainable, and more a question of whether or not we allow data centers in a community like ours. It seems pretty clear cut to me that, if a data center is to set up shop right here in Douglas County, that's going to be a serious hindrance. It's going to be a major detriment to our progress. And if we're able to avoid that, that's one less thing we have to worry about.
Elephants in the room, I understand figure of speech, but when it comes to these two elephants, I think they're less elephants and more like poachers or the circus trainers, unfortunately. And I hate to say that because I tend to be pretty generous with our electric utility that we are going to depend on for an environmental future to turn people away from fossil fuel powered energy, oil and gas, into clean electricity for our industries, our homes and businesses, et cetera. But the way things are going, it doesn't appear to be that way. Evergy is invested in gas-fired power plants that will continue to pollute the water and the air and not make it any better for climate change. And so our electric company is quickly becoming a gas company. And if we get into other fossil fuels, it's not going to be any better. If anything, these elephants are in a herd because Evergy's been supporting data center expansion across Kansas, including this last year a bill to give a big tax giveaway to lure data centers here into Kansas, and paired that with asking for more thermal resources, what they call them, a fancy name for more fossil fuel power to propel those data centers to the tune of, in their territory, they anticipate doubling the size of the grid in the next 20 years, 10 gigawatts, adding 10 more gigawatts to the grid already. So those are both very scary prospects, especially when we're talking about a for-profit monopoly that stands to benefit out of increased investment. A couple things. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to have dirty data centers. Now, I'll spare the rant on artificial intelligence, but we can power these things with clean energy, okay? So that's something, if Kansas wants to invite data centers, let's do it the right way, smart on water, smart on energy, help protect our communities, et cetera. A couple other things. I'll say that it was funny, the power outages. The number one reason for Evergy losing service for their territory is severe weather, extreme weather. So it's in the company's interest and ratepayers' interest and the community's interest to do more to help climate change. Utilities across the country, across the world should be doing that. So I think that goes back to why this is such important of an ordinance. More cities and communities can demand that we want a more positive policy stance, environmental future, to shut down our local coal plants and repower them to sustainable energy, solar and storage, and more. I think these ordinances send a message to our utility provider that we need progress. So only more reason to keep it. Thank you.
Well, I'll yield some of my time to Zach's last answer. In my career as a public servant, I've been really disappointed in Evergy's apparent hostility to renewable energy, and especially to distributed generation like distributed solar. I think if Evergy was willing to consider these things and work creatively with the KCC, I think there are ways to dramatically increase the amount of renewable energy in their portfolio and still protect the interests of their shareholders if they were interested, but they don't appear to be. So as far as potential data centers, I mean, the proliferation of data centers is going to make it impossible for anyone anywhere to achieve their climate protection goals. And whether it happens here is really up to the people we elect to our county commission and possibly our city commission. So we don't have to just bend over and roll over and take it. We can ask for what's best for our community.
Ooh, that was loud. Okay, I would just want to emphasize that I think Zack really hit the nail on the head when he said we've got to make these data centers responsible for being powered by their own clean energy. And if they can be powered by their own clean energy and make sure they don't cause problems for our water, then they can be here, in my opinion, and the Sierra Club stance. Move it a little closer again. Okay. And is just that, is data centers are okay as long as they power themselves with clean energy and don't impact our grid, which is entirely possible. I think that would be something that the city could write in an ordinance that we will accept data centers if they're completely green energy powered and not on our grid. And that would be a way to deal with it. I think that we also have to deal with Evergy in another really important way. Distributed solar is really important, to have your own ability to have solar panels, to have plug-in solar. I think these are things that we need to be able to support, make sure that they don't have ordinances or areas where the solar panels are not allowed. Certain communities don't allow solar panels because of the HOAs, but we've got to get rid of those things. I think we need to make sure that all of us can have our own solar energy, and it's a way around Evergy's lack of solar power. I don't support them with the coal, with the gas, but I think each of us can also take a role in supporting the renewable energy.
Thank you again. We have 3 more questions, and we're going to allow about 5 minutes in total for each of these. So I'm going to start with one of the panelists, and then after that, just jump in if you have something to say. We won't necessarily go down the line. Beyond electric buses, how has the city of Lawrence responded to this ordinance already? And let's start with Christina.
I might have to yield my time to some other folks who know this a little bit better, but I know the city has been doing some, I think, clean energy tax credits, right? Maybe? And working with the county has their climate sustainability plan as well. Yeah, I would defer to someone down the line who might be more knowledgeable.
Well, we were fortunate to have the city's sustainability director come and talk with the Sierra Club, and so I got a little bit of insight what was going on. But the big takeaway that I want to emphasize is that sustainability is seemingly being integrated in each and every department. So as opposed to being its own department and kind of isolated in its own office, the director has done a significant amount of work to try to integrate in all the various departments to have them think about ways they can improve their operations in terms of sustainability. So I can't spell all those things out, but I thought that was a pretty important takeaway. And then the other thing is we were made aware that I believe the city has been acquired a grant to improve, I think specifically climate operations within the city in various ways. So in some ways, I think the city can be even more capable now. Yes, improvements needed to oversight and maybe coordination with utilities and all the things the Sustainability Board put out there, but we could be at a better capacity to achieve these goals perhaps more than ever.
So this grant that was given to the city for sustainability is for planning. And so they can make really great plans based on this information. And I'll just add a couple of things that the city has done. One is they got a consulting firm to come in and look at the fleet, look at what opportunities we have for electrification of all of the vehicles for the city. And they were given some recommendations. The large equipment like the trash collecting is really not viable at this point because there's not the equipment that is reasonable to do it. But you can do that with many of the other pieces of equipment, and there were specific recommendations that the city was given in regard to electrification of their fleet. Another thing that they did was they now have LEED Gold for their buildings, and so that's a really high level of efficiency and I think, Kay, you could really speak to that a little bit better, but they do improve the use of energy through that means. So those are two different examples of what the city has done recently.
And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board. We've spoken of it a number of times. You lead it. It's certainly something the city has done to help reach this goal, but can you describe the advisory board?
Okay, so the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board is a board that's only been around for about a year or so because they dissolved the Sustainability Advisory Board when they reorganized the advisory boards and cut them down and combined them. But there was an outcry from many of you in the city who said we really need to continue with this type of a board. It's currently made up of about 6 people who have a variety of expertise. We meet monthly, and we're a policy advisory board, so we recommend policy to the City Commission. And we have written about 3 or 4 letters advising different policies. So for instance, one of the recent policies that we suggested was one in which landlords would have to be transparent in the utility costs for their renters. So the renters could make decisions on whether or not it was going to be very expensive for their utilities or not. And this would, I think, motivate landlords to improve their efficiency. And that's the whole idea, is so that people can make good decisions, renters can make good decisions. And this is something the board was pushing. We didn't get anywhere with the City Commission, but I think we can continue to push on these types of policies that are a win-win. It wins for the renter, it's a win for the sustainability, and nobody really loses because it doesn't cost the landlords anything at all.
All right, next question. Zack, go ahead.
Just quickly, I forgot to mention that I believe City of Lawrence intervened at the Kansas Corporation Commission in terms of pushing for a better long-term energy plan for Evergy and their forecasts. So that's one way the City of Lawrence, I think, helped try to actualize some of their principles and values in terms of energy at the state regulatory agency.
Thanks. And speaking of the Kansas Corporation Commission, what can individuals do to help Lawrence keep the 100% renewable energy goal. And Owen, can we start with you on this one?
I think the biggest and best answer is just advocacy, whether that's on a personal level or, as a part of a larger whole with one of the organizations represented here today. Unfortunately, when we're talking about an issue as big as climate change, I think the impact in terms of raw numbers, data, math, energy usage that any one individual or even an entire household can make is pretty limited. And I wish that weren't the case, but very often that's how it is. And so I've found that oftentimes the best way for an individual to be empowered in terms of the change they can make on a local level is to, again, participate in advocacy in whatever form that may take. And for, all the people in this room, that's just showing up today, participating in this discussion and asking questions. And I think that's really arguably how individuals here in Lawrence can probably make the biggest impact as well.
Boog.
Oh, and I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think there's not a lot an individual can do, but there's a lot 100,000 individuals can do. I think I think resource conservation is still a big part of the picture. I mean, anything we can do to reduce our personal energy consumption is going to contribute to our goals. We can all install solar panels on top of our houses. It'd be easier if the credits would come back. But there are a lot of things we can do as individuals, although every advocacy is important. And intervening in KCC, commenting on KCC rate cases where sustainability is an issue. But that's it. And that's my personal opinion, not the league opinion.
Anybody else?
Could I actually give an answer to 3?
Oh, sure. We're going to go back to 3.
Sorry, this was just something I was mulling over in my head. And beyond electric buses, how has the city of Lawrence responded to the ordinance already? And I'd have to say, beyond that, there's, of course, the things that have been listed, plans, schedules, and committee meetings, but not nearly enough has happened. Because if we were at a point where I could say, we haven't progressed enough to say, let's stop doing this, where if rescinding is an option, that means we haven't made enough progress to keep going, that effective change hasn't actually been ingrained yet. So we haven't made enough changes. We haven't responded enough to the ordinance to not cancel it. If we were making active changes, making the firm decisions like solar panels, like these physical changes to the city of Lawrence, then you won't just stop. You'll keep going because you already have that footing, that progress being made, and we need to push for that, not just for plans, but for actions, decisions being made and put into effect.
Thank you. All right, our last planned question, and then we'll go to the audience, is I'll give an example. Baldwin City has municipal solar. They have a municipal utility that supplies solar to their community, about 10% of their community's needs. So that's right here in Douglas County. It's not 100%, but they're producing 10%. So I'm asking the panel, are there other cities that you know of that would give us hope that 100% renewable energy goal is a goal that we should try to achieve?
Well, we have a couple just in our local area. So we've got Greenburg, Kansas. So they have completely 100% renewable electricity. There's Rockport, Missouri. So another very close by city. They were the first U.S. city to be fully powered by wind energy with local turbines. There's a number of other cities in our country, Burlington, Vermont, Aspen, Colorado, Denton, Kansas. I'm sorry, Denton, Texas. Texas. If they can do it, why can't we do it? Right? Okay, Reykjavik, Iceland, Munich, Germany, Copenhagen, Denmark, and Vancouver, Canada. So if these guys can do it, we can too.
It's like the World Cup of solar energy.
There you go.
Yeah. Other comments?
I might not be able to give you a city, but I can give you a nation. The Cherokee Nation this year decided to enact the Cherokee Nation Energy and Sustainability Act. This happened in May. And this is something that is trying to push and make the Cherokee Nation a space that can allow our future generations to thrive. To quote Chuck Hoskin Jr., our principal chief, we cannot honor our ancestors or look out for the next 7 generations if we do not commit to a more sustainable path. This is something that we have made decisions in northeastern Oklahoma. It's hard to get that change in certain areas, but this passed the executive and legislative branches of my nation within this year. These changes are not only possible, if we can put our entire back into it, they're going to be probable. They're going to happen. So I can't give you a city, but I can give you the Cherokee Nation as an example.
Thank you.
That was kind of where I was going with Navajo Nation, yeah, to add the tribal nations. I know our nation, right, Summer, is looking at some solar farms out there, and that's current discussions happening. I believe Iowa tribes might have gotten a state grant as well for clean energy and solar, so looking at our tribal nations as well. But kind of going back to the other question on how folks can get involved in helping Lawrence keep 100% renewable energy goal. Beyond giving public comment, July 14th is the last day for the primary election voter registration and to update your voter information. We have these elections coming up in August and in November. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I just want you to flex those civic engagement muscles, because at all levels of government, folks are making these decisions. Folks are making decisions at the city and county level on solar siting, and at the state level for tax breaks and all that good stuff. Wherever you see on your ballot, it'd be important to make those voting plans, and it can, again, keep the conversation going. Like the League of Women Voters, Lawrence Douglas County did, they put it into their policy and had a clean energy policy and had a thorough discussion. I know you all did it very due diligently, working and getting input from the public, from their organization, and from other nonprofits as well. Implementing sustainability goals and policies within your own network and your own work can be a good first step into normalizing these renewable energy goals. So yeah.
Nancy had some really great examples of cities and towns, both local and international, that have been able to achieve broad success when it comes to a shift with renewable energy. And I think Greensburg is actually a really interesting example, because it speaks to something that we should all bear in mind, which is that Lawrence specifically has a large set of advantages that these other communities and cities necessarily didn't have whenever they were making their transitions. Basically, every single one of those communities started at a point where they had no clean energy infrastructure built up, and Lawrence, at present, does have limited support for that sort of infrastructure. We have the FCI program, where we're increasing weatherization for municipal buildings, and I believe it's Prairie Nature Park in South Lawrence is now powered by solar panels, and so there's both motivation, will, desire, and also infrastructure already in place. And, as much as we can look to those other examples and think, wow, they've done something really impressive, it's important to remember we're also in a really great position to do that exact same thing with a series of advantages that would make it even easier for us to replicate those exact same results.
I had to look it up because I thought I knew it, but it had been a while, and it was during the pandemic, if I remember right, where the city decided to purchase part of a wind farm to power its city municipal operations by renewable energy. Okay, so that's great. If we want to try to expand on some of the other goals here in the ordinance, we could consider doing that for a larger part of the city's energy demands, the community's energy demands, besides just the municipal operations. The other thing I think is, Evergy's come up with plans to delay and postpone the retirement of the coal plant here in town. And there's specific legislation that our legislature has passed to provide an opportunity to transition from expensive fossil fuel coal burning power plants to something that could be clean and cheaper and better for the community, the host community especially, securitization. So there's opportunities there. I think it's tough because you're dealing with the community's needs, and then the utilities dealing with their larger needs across multiple communities. But I think there's an element to say, whoa, we sure like to see you close down that coal plant. We're having to endure the pollution from that, and as ratepayers, the costs from that. So we have these goals for clean energy. Why don't we try to provide energy that might be cheaper and better for our community all the way around? So, thank you.
All right, well now it's time for the audience to address the panel with your comments or questions about the topics we've discussed tonight. If you have a comment or question that you'd like to discuss with the panel, please raise your hand and we'll recognize. Hang on just a moment. I love the hands. We'll recognize you to come to the microphone. If you would state your name and what city you live in. And again, we appreciate the audience being here to engage in this discourse. So, hands. Right here, yes.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm glad to be here tonight with everyone. This is a great opportunity to discuss this issue. I have a couple of things to talk about which came to mind over the past year especially. First of all, as far as corporations go, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. They're not in the business of making, decisions of a less financial value just because they're nice guys or whatever they might. So the thing is, how many of us want to be shareholders? We can actually become shareholders of Evergy and then go to their board meetings and insist that they change. That's one way of doing it. But another thing too, I think another idea, I like the idea of solar panels especially, very, very good idea. I thought a couple of years ago that I heard that with Evergy's insistence that there was a rule or a law limiting the number of solar panels on houses to 1% of their customer base, that you cannot go over that. At that time, there was only 1/10 of 1%, so it wasn't even close. But there is actually a limit. So if everybody can't do that legally, I guess, right now, according to some kind of regulations. And also, I just to wrap it up in a way, we have to put this in the context of other decisions being made by the city, okay? A couple of months ago, I spoke about the bad decision on my part to charge for the recreation centers for a number of different reasons. Because for a while, if you were a citizen of Douglas County, you were able to use the rec centers for free because we floated a bond issue to actually, pay for the new rock truck. Okay, well, they reneged on that. And the same night that I spoke about that, I found out that they passed unanimously funding $500,000, $35.09 to rent 75 elite titanium golf carts for the city of Lawrence. That was passed. They over $500,000. Well, they're going to get all the money back. That's the idea. They're going to rent it to people to get all that money back. But that's where the money is going. That's a decision of money that's being made instead of this kind of thing. They could put 1/10 of that into solar energy, it would be good. So you have to really realize where the priorities are. Where's the money? Where's the money? Where are they going to go? They're making decisions like that. And that annoys the hell out of me because that's not the direction. It shows you exactly what the priorities are. So I think looking at this energy thing, look at what other decisions are being made, where the money is being spent, and call them out on it because is that the way we really want to go or not? And who decides that? Who decides this? So anyway, that's enough of what I'm saying.
Your name and your...
What? Oh, my name is Hank Gorisco and whatever. Oh, another thing, well, I'll wrap it up because I don't want to talk all night, but I was very surprised at the Sierra Club meeting we had. We invited a wonderful speaker. He ran the nuclear power plant research reactor at K-State. It was really good. I liked the guy. It was very good, and he gave a very good presentation. However, I was a little bit amazed to see that people were not really that knowledgeable about that. It seemed to be that nuclear power wants to slip in as a green energy or something, which is kind of a little bit strange in a way. I have background in radiation biophysics, almost have a master's degree in that from years ago. So, we studied different things like this, and I looked up recently the new technologies that are proposed for the state now. There's a number of them, and there's a tentative agreement or whatever of understanding between the state and a couple of Evergy is one company, and another company that plans to put mid-level nuclear power in maybe DeSoto or Topeka or wherever. A couple of places have expressed interest. So
So I'm going to ask you to wrap it up and let
wrap
the
it up. Yeah.
and
That's-
let
anyway,
the panel
it's-
respond.
Yeah.
Any response
okay,
from
sorry,
the panel?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm done.
Yeah, Boog.
Okay.
We have a state senator in the office, in the audience who might want to respond to a state law question that was raised in the previous.
Please do.
Thank you, Marci Fransico. I live in Lawrence. There is a limit on the amount of distributed energy, but it has been increased to, I believe, 5%. So that's very different from what we heard.
Real quickly, if I may, so there's a lot of other solar-friendly policies that we hope that can get passed by the legislature soon. We're one of the top 10 states for the solar resource, sunny days, but we're one of the bottom 10 states in solar power. So that's got to change. It'd be thinking, imagine if Kansas decided not to do agriculture with all our land and all that stuff. But Hank's a good point on shareholders. We had a shareholder within the Sierra Club that said, yeah, I'm disappointed in Evergy not following its sustainability goals, et cetera. As a shareholder, I want to put forth a resolution at their annual meeting to ask them to verify their greenhouse gases by a third party. And we met with Evergy about that, and they suggested no action on the resolution and petitioned the Securities and Exchange Commission to deny the resolution. I think that's what happened. So.
Thank you. Thad Holcomb, I'm from the Barker neighborhood. Also, I'm moderator for Lawrence Ecology Teams, United Sustainability. I say that as an interfaith group of 9 different faith communities here, and it has a history, and it comes out of that history. I want to make some of this comment. I think there's the herd of elephants. Zack, I'm going to add to the herd. The herd is, part of it is the Sustainability Advisory Board. When is the city going to take us seriously as an advisory board? The dilution of a definition of sustainability happens when you say, well, we're going to see each department. Where's the accountability? That needs to be called forth every year. What have you done in your department regarding sustainability? And what is your understanding of sustainability? I'm not sure there is a convincing definition that runs the policy decisions except those from pressure from outside sources. Sustainability often means let's grow. Not smart growth, grow. And I think we're seeing the results of that, which is the tension that brings us to this point of having a forum. So I'm asking that the city take seriously the Sustainability Advisory Board. The Sustainability Advisory Board has a list of possibilities now, and I'm imposing it upon you, Nancy, as chair, but if you all can Google that, I think you'll find maybe only about 30 suggestions. But they need to have some priorities coming out of that, and they need people to come to the Sustainability Board meeting and speak to that and go to the city and say, this is what has come up. The pressure needs to be applied in an informed way of defining sustainability, being accountable to advisory board, not just simply having that. Isn't that nice to have that advisory board because it's already tried to dilute it and really come up with that definition. So thank you again for this panel and all of you. Well done.
Thank you. And any response from the panel?
Well, I would like to just second the idea that we would love all of you to come to the next meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board and help us prioritize the very many suggestions that have been come from the board, and then support them to the City Commission. And it's really important to hear all your voices. It's the last Thursday of each month. 5:45. No, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. Yeah, and you can come online if you don't want to show up in person at the City Commission, City Hall.
Yeah.
You can join online.
Is it okay if I just sit down?
Sure.
Okay. Just to tack on to what Thad was saying about the need to take seriously the Sustainability Advisory Board. The Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board is on point because I've been attending those meetings for years, and I actually served on the former Sustainability Advisory Board until it was essentially illegally dissolved, because we don't need to go into that tonight, but I am glad that the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board is moving forward. I can't even remember if the city ever responded to the prior SAB's requests for updates on this ordinance. So it's not like the city's commission and city staff and city manager hasn't been asked about this. So there's been ample time for them to, at least assess the situation and come up with the plan themselves. So I do think it's really important to empower this board, for the city commission, staff, and the manager to listen to this, the ESAB. One of the things that potentially is making boards more impotent is the inability to create subcommittees. And as we know, that is where a lot of the really nitty-gritty work happens of policy development. And I just want to say that this panel tonight is just so full of wonderful local experts, and we're lucky to have all of you on board and fighting for this cause. I'm kind of starstruck, but I mention that because I think that I can't remember if the ESAB's recent recommendations regarding improving and revising the ordinance included setting up a specific subcommittee for these conversations to happen and to develop that. I think that is a really important component of any improvement to the resolution or the ordinance. And yes, it would be ridiculous to try to rescind this. I'd like the idea of improving it, is a good word, but it's time for us to improve this ordinance, not repeal it.
And would you share your name, please?
I'm Dawn Hawkins, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Any response from the panel?
Well, just to respond to Dawn's question about the subcommittee, we didn't request the ability to have a subcommittee for this particular.
Was that responded to?
The letter has not been responded to yet. I mean, it was put on the agenda, the consent agenda, but it wasn't pulled off of the consent agenda, so it wasn't discussed. And we submitted it on March 31st. So
That subcommittee was approved?
No, we didn't request a subcommittee. We sent a letter to ask for improvements to the ordinance, but there was no discussion of our letter at the City Commission. As I said, it was on the consent agenda. They didn't pull it off.
Okay, hi. My name is Aspen Jung. I live in Lawrence, and I swear to God, if the city closes one more street for construction, I will not be able to leave my house. I just putting on my historian's hat for a second. The business model of the monopoly utility that Evergy has is only about 125 years old or so, and there was a moral argument there that the company gets a confirmed user base and they get a confirmed rate of return on their services, but there is a moral obligation to provide services to everybody in their region. And that's why they're allowed to have a monopoly and not have to worry about competition, not have to worry about pricing. So maybe we should really remind Evergy of that moral obligation that they signed up for when they decided, hey, we're going to be a utility and make a whole bunch of money. Also, I think, and this is nationwide, certainly, but in Lawrence, I think we have an untapped resource for potential solar projects, which is parking lots. Parking lots are sunny places. And we already have overhead solar at the Merck up at 9th and Iowa. So why can't we just do that all over the city? If you've got a parking lot of a certain size, maybe something the city or the county could do to encourage the property owner to install overhead solar in there. We might be able to run a utility scale solar just on South Iowa Street. I mean, with the Target and the Kohl's parking lots, and it will keep the city cooler. It will preserve green space and agricultural land because there's no environmental impact of redeveloping already developed land, and we can all park in the shade. So I just wanted to throw that idea out and see if anybody salutes.
Any response?
I got a small response to that. One, at my old place, there was construction the last 3 months of living there. I moved to a new space, and then they started construction between me and Haskell the next day. So, yeah, that's a big existential issue here in Lawrence, is the road work. Now, yeah, that is a great novel idea of just putting renewable resources in the city bounds itself, just having solar over parking lots. I mean, think of the 2-hour free parking on Massachusetts Street alone. You have tons of open space there that you can't use for anything else. You need that parking, but now you'll have a canopy over it that is giving electricity to Massachusetts Street. Also, there's the added benefit of that lessened heat on your own vehicles, because I have a touchscreen in my car that no longer works because the electronics probably got overheated and fried itself. So you're going to have that added benefit. And there's also canopy coverage for pedestrians, animals, other things that these open spaces that aren't walled in will just allow a cooler environment while also giving us some more electricity. So I see that as a win-win and an absolute win. And please, City of Lawrence, figure out your construction for cities. We do not need to close down more. All right, that's all I got.
So Marci Fransico, City of Lawrence. I've heard a lot of comments about Evergy, but none from the panel about their proposed solar installation here in Douglas County. So I'd like some comments about that. And also, my understanding is that the Climate and Energy Project did some research about what the relationship could be between distributed solar on rooftops and parking lots versus the installation of that solar farm. And I think the solar farm could provide far more energy. So, any comments on that?
Yeah, so adding more more rooftop solar is always nice, and especially when it's over parking lots. But we can cover more ground if we have solar farms, and that comes into a discussion with our rural neighbors and our agricultural neighbors. So that is always, I think, you have to meet in the middle somewhere. So yeah, rooftop solar is good, but we can add more to the grid when we have distributed solar farms. And also on the previous comment about, Evergy has a moral obligation, it was really upsetting to see more natural gas plants be proposed and now being built because of the volatility of gas. And when, as mentioned previously, extreme weather really impacts our grid system and the sustainability of it and the reliability of it, but also the price of it as well. So we're all getting hit by things that are out of our control, injustices that are happening across the world, and we're feeling that and just trying to keep the lights on.
Can I be panel adjacent and add a comment? The county commission, of course, is grappling with the decision on that solar plant that Evergy has requested, and there's been a good deal of opposition to it. But if you support solar energy, tell your county commissioner. That's another thing you can do. Ask your county commission candidates if they support solar energy. Boog.
Thank you, Carol. I've got my league hat on now. I'm going to read from the energy position again. The Lawrence Douglas County League supports the development of utility-scale solar energy in Douglas County. Utility-scale solar generation and storage is urgently needed to help reduce the emission of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuels to generate electricity.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the Kansas Sky Energy Project, developed, was permitted, and is now just facing some legal hurdles on all that from a legal challenge, but I hope that'll clear, and that would have been had not faced the hurdle and got going on construction, would have been the biggest solar farm in Kansas. So it would have been permitted to be 159 megawatts, which is very significant. I mean, when we talked about powering the city's operation 90% renewable, I think they purchased 8 or 9 megawatts. So that's significant. That's, I don't know, a third or so of the Lawrence Energy Center, the coal plant there. So just one solar farm. And we're not even talking about maximizing that with energy storage. Because then you take that solar, you know, when we're all needing power to help cool our buildings and the, triple-digit heat index or whatever, then we can utilize the same sun that's causing that heat for energy. So that would have been, and still is, a great project. I think a lot of the environmental interest there was, how do we try to make sure that this isn't harmful to the environment besides providing the beneficial environmental impact of clean energy? So, and in fact, I think Douglas County put a lot of safeguards and protections in there to try to do it the right way as far as solar goes. The last thing I'll say on that, on the rooftop solar, is I think there's no reason why Evergy can't change its business model to take advantage of the interest and enthusiasm of people to invest in solar themselves. That way, we don't, as ratepayers, don't have to pay them for that investment, and then plus the rate of return, when we can just take advantage of the beneficial power that people are making in their homes and businesses, and then the excess can go to the grids and the neighbors and the community at large. They should be doing both, but we need all the strategies, in my view: utility scale solar, community solar, residential rooftop solar, parking lot solar, balcony solar, all the above, to try to help deal with such an important issue on our hands in terms of climate change.
Just a quick deal, it's capacity. I think that you, of course, start with what can we install in kind of our already urbanized environment, what can go over the parking lots, what can go on the rooftops, and fill that capacity. If there is still a need for more energy, then you can move into other areas. But I look at solar farms in a way of making sure that they minimize any impact on the environment, because we need to think about our eco-kinship environments around us. If there's a detrimental impact to an ecosystem, that should not happen. I view the issue of climate change and really how we've gotten to this as overuse of our environment around us, overusages of natural resources. And I think whenever we put renewable energies in a space that still impacts our ecological kin, then you're basically saying, we're going to dig ourselves into this hole, but then we're going to go the same angle to try and dig ourselves out. It's still harming the world around us. So finding a way that minimizes the impacts to our environment physically, locationally, while also maximizes our own capacity for electricity, here in Lawrence, and also rethinking how we view our own usages of electricity as well.
Any other questions? We about need to wrap it up, but we probably have time for 2 more quick questions. Deb?
I am a Lawrence resident. I also lived for a long time in a city that had a city electric company. And I hope you'll excuse my written notes, but Evergy originally made a commitment to stop burning coal to produce electricity at the Lawrence Power Plant in 2023. It reneged on that commitment. Evergy then committed to convert the coal-burning power plant by 2028, but recently again reneged on that commitment. Evergy gave no indication when they were going to shut down the coal-fired power plant. Now they have given themselves permission to use coal indefinitely, despite the serious health and environmental risks of coal ash dump sites. And I did a little reading about that, and it's quite frankly scary. Evergy has not dealt with Lawrence in good faith, and there is no reason to believe that they will change. I don't see any evidence of it. Even switching to natural gas uses fossil fuels, but at least it wouldn't involve the ash dumps, and neither is necessary with solar and wind options. What I would ask this group to bring to the city and Douglas County commissioners is the need to make it a priority to find a utility company that could be relied on to keep its word.
Comments?
Well, I also grew up in a town that had its own municipal electric utility, Garnett, Kansas. I don't know if any of you know it. I mean, that would, as far as I know, there are no legal barriers to the city doing that. I'm not sure. It's a massive project. I'm not sure we have the appetite to take on, but it probably should be an option on the table.
Okay, last question here.
Thank you. Jeremy Rothkushel, Lawrence, Kansas here, the radical middle of America. I just want to make sure that we are talking about and considering total clean energy, renewable energy, carbon effective energy, and not just clean electricity. Because of course, like there's massive, embodied energy, emergy, the materials, our material infrastructure, all of that has massive energy input. And of course, even big things like the soil have massive areas that are in need of carbon. And so to put the carbon in the soil, put the carbon in the plants, put the carbon in the trees, we need to reconsider radically, new or old, maybe, ways of perennial agriculture. We need to think through, carbon-effective cyclical fuels, because even electric cars have all kinds of problems in terms of the batteries and all that. So that's one question, consideration. And then in order to do and think about these kinds of maybe massive system-wide kinds of changes that we need to do for all kinds of reasons, or the ecology being one major part of it, we need politics. We need to have, organizing at all levels of political organization, including city commission, and so that's one thing I'm asking is this whole model of the city manager. This is not some kind of thing that's been around forever. This was put into the city, I think, in the 50s. I'll spare people the details of the background of this whole system, but it goes back to the new Ku Klux Klan in Maine and a merger with the Chamber of Commerce, and it's not exactly the same here, but there's elements of that in terms of what it's done in terms of the democratization. And so then we're stuck in these advisory boards that are neutered in terms of their power, then totally destroyed at the drop of a hat. And so can we consider political organizing at multiple scales where we actually come together in terms of partnerships? We can have different politics, but slates of candidates and platforms that can be scaled up from the very roots upwards potentially. So we can have things like you were talking about, or cities with our own municipal, at least a public option for things like broadband, energy, these kinds of things. And in order to do these things, we're going to need to transcend, I think, our current stagnation politically too.
Okay, and I want to end, but I saw one more hand out there, so I'm going to give you permission if you need to go ahead and go. But panel, please stay just a moment. Jerry, I think we had one more question here.
I'm Jerry Jones. I live in North Lawrence, and I struggle with how to balance the preservation of prime farmland and having industrial scale solar. Help me think through that. Thank you.
One really good example that's been becoming more and more common in Europe and has started catching on here in the United States regarding solar and how we can reconcile the usage of prime farmland is agrivoltaics, which is essentially the concept that we could basically do a solar farm, have it operate at essentially 100% efficiency, and still use certain techniques like building practices and certain agricultural practices, and still farm that land at the exact same time. And so the idea is, maybe, for example, it's animal husbandry. And so you can keep goats, sheep, or chickens on the exact same land, and they actually benefit from the shade. And it means that they can, be under the solar panels, and it helps them avert overheating during the summer, for example. And there's also a wide variety of different perennial plants that, have a preference for shade that those solar panels can actually very successfully provide. And so, to the best of my knowledge, programs like that, where you do either animals or grow plants underneath solar panels at solar sites in Europe, have been really successful. And one of the most interesting parts about that is that the vast majority of the plants that they're growing over there right now in Europe using agrivoltaics, using these strategies, can also be grown right here in Douglas County.
Nancy, you wanted to respond?
I'd just like to make one comment. It's not addressing your question, but there is currently an open position on the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board, so we need someone to volunteer for the position. One of our members had to resign, and so please consider working with us. It would be really useful to have somebody who's interested and has energy and will advocate.
Zach?
Yeah, great question, Jerry. I'd say Owen's right on the money there with agrivoltaics. My comment would be I wish we treated prime farmland like it was prime farmland. We're putting a lot of bad chemicals on that land. I think we're growing the food for animals instead of for the community. And we could do a lot more with prime farmland if we were intentional about it, more sustainable practices, ecologically friendly agriculture, et cetera. But also think that covering that land with solar panels for a temporary or a certain amount of time can help the land rest and rejuvenate, especially if we're putting pollinator crops on it and doing rotational grazing and some of the other things there. And then last but not least, I think one really important line of the ordinance that struck me was the part about energy efficiency and conservation. And it's in B, it says, energy efficiency and conservation are the least costly strategies to reduce emissions associated with energy production, followed by clean energy. So some of the comments here remind me that it's how we decide how we use energy, both at an individual level, but also a collective level. And are we just going to allow data centers to come in and usurp as much energy as our whole community, homes and businesses combined use? Are we going to decide, well, do we really need that electricity for that thing in society and life when it's sacrificing the quality of life that our environment affords us? Or should we be smarter about it? We're one of the worst states of all the states in the country in helping people save energy. And we should be in the top, for a conservative state to not conserve energy. What's going on there? So anyway, you all know that, but I just think that's really important. That's something that our utility company isn't going to do as good of a job in helping us save energy because they have for-profit motives in selling energy. Then what can we do as a community to help our residents save energy, to lower energy burden for seniors or low-income populations that are on fixed incomes so they can have the electricity that they need? And a lot of this in today's, it's necessary. I mean, when you have triple-digit heats, the people that are suffering in their homes often don't have air conditioning. And so we're getting to the point where the climate change is worsened to the effect that we need to do better about offering electricity. When we could like to go off grid and maybe turn off the air conditioner, it's getting harder and harder to do that. So,
Zach, what's the cheapest energy source?
the energy you don't use.
Real quick comment, Carol. This has been the same for 20 years. Our federal government and our state governments are abdicating their responsibility to deal with this. If we're going to have a planet that's left for survival for our children, grandchildren, it's got to happen on the municipal level with each one of us. So anything we can do at the local level that's where the action is. So thank you.
And quickly, we've lost some federal tax incentives, and we don't have, I don't know if we have any at the state for tax incentives on clean energy, electric vehicles, or at the municipality level.
Kelly, step to the mic and our final comment.
I'll keep this short, and sorry about, I wear several hats as well, but I did email my son, who works for Van Meter Electric in Kansas City, about parking lot solar panels, which always looks like such a great idea. He says rooftop is cheaper by half. But I just want to make an announcement that if you want to talk to your county commissioners or listen to their positions about the data centers or clean energy, Women for Kansas is going to host a panel here Thursday night, July 16th, 6 o'clock, among the Douglas County Commission candidates. You're all welcome to come.
Thank you. And thank all of you for attending and participating in our forum discussion. As I said, we'll send the full video to the City Commission, and we'll also send a highlight reel in case they just want to watch a little bit of the comments that were made tonight. But your voices will be heard, as well as our outstanding panel. Please join me in thanking our panel.
And thank you to the audience